Hi there, Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. I have with me my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris has been with us for a little over a year now. We've been doing this, Chris.
Yeah.
And, I know we've had a couple guest speakers on, but you and I have really covered quite a bit. And we're going to get right into one of the things that we've covered pretty extensively. In fact, given the shaping dynamic of what's happening with BRICS, we're going to
hmm
talk about that now. They just completed their summit,
Yep.
and jumping right into our first article here, the they have officially now BRICS has officially added 13 new nations as partner countries.
hmm
And for those of you tuning in, you can see in the link there, if you click on that link, you'll see the 13 countries that have been added to this BRICS alliance, this movement. And that's not the end of it. I mean, it continues to grow,
Yeah.
growing exponentially more than I think many people even had anticipated it would. And not only have they added new partners, but they continue to, you know, work this effort of establishing a de-dollarization, if you will,
hmm
where they're getting rid of these nations who are signing on board. They're trying to strengthen their domestic economy, their local economies, as well as not be victim or fall victim to or subject to dollar dominance, which means the U.S. basically telling them how they need to do things as it relates to their
Yep.
countries, their economies, et cetera.
Yeah.
So with these 13 nations, it's not a shock really. But what do you think, Chris, that with these 13 nations, the next step is going to be with BRICS?
Yeah. Well, continued growth for sure. But what I found interesting about this is these partner nations, they're calling them, as opposed to full-fledged members. They basically get to participate in BRICS, just like they were full members. They just don't get voting privileges yet. So it's sort of a like try before you buy, I guess, or like a probation period. They can make sure that they're a good fit and that things are going well. But that actually, to me, means this is even a bigger concern, because it enables them to basically try out a lot of new partners, make it easier for people to step into the BRICS world a little bit, before they have to make a full commitment on either end. So I think this is really opening the door more so than if they had this stringent process where they over a long period of time had narrowed down these 13 nations. Now really what they're doing is opening a broader door to other nations who want to give it a try and work there.
Sure.
So or work with their currencies. So I definitely think this is just kind of the first step. Well, I should say they took a first step last year by letting some other people in, some other member nations. But I mean, this is the first step towards really making this a big dominant forum that the dollar is going to have to contend with.
Sure. No, you actually, that's a very good point you brought up in the example or the analogy of try before you buy.
hmm
Because from my perspective anyways, that kind of speaks to the substance that seems to exist here with BRICS. And what I mean by that is, if they are allowing these countries to come in and try it out first, not have votes, not have a voice, but try it out, that you would think is not something the BRICS alliance would do unless they were confident enough that once these nations were involved in this trial period, they were going to see, okay, you know what, this really does work. This really is good. And this is something that we want to, become a full participant of. And
Yeah.
that's kind of frightening because the growth that's there, and we've talked about this a lot, the amount of gold, natural resources, et cetera, that these nations
hmm
represent that have joined this BRICS alliance, and that momentum that's building is something that the United States of America, we're not that I've seen, and we've covered quite a bit. We've been scouring, the news wires, et cetera, for information on this. That I've seen, there's nothing that the United States has done to really counteract or counterbalance any of these efforts of BRICS. In fact, they're just neglecting it altogether.
Yeah.
And at some point, that strategy is going to prove to be a very unsound strategy. And
Yeah.
again, in fact, getting into the next article here, as we talk about how we've been neglectful, the title here, "The Gloves Are Off." BRICS is officially challenging the US dollar.
Yeah.
And specifically, which this we knew about, we've covered it before as well. They've come out with the currency. They, in fact, at the summit, Putin was presented a what they call it, a mock-up of the new BRICS bill.
Right.
And but this is something that they're not backing down on whatsoever. And in addition to not backing down on it, they've even gone as they're confident enough in it where they initially, as we've talked about, suggested that this was going to be a gold-backed currency, which was very, very easy to see why that would be appealing, why that would be enticing for other nations to participate in something that was not just a fiat money that was
Hmm.
strictly confidence-based and could be easily manipulated. They had this gold backing, but they're so confident in what they're doing in BRICS that they've been able to kind of move forward without even having that gold backing. And they want it at some point, and they're suggesting that they will have it at some point. But right now, from a timing standpoint, this establishment, this movement of BRICS, has determined that having their own currency, non-dollar currency, took precedent over what their original desire was.
Yeah.
So this is something that, how in the world, or when in the world, is the United States going to start addressing this and do something to try and counterbalance it?
Yeah, good question. Because, like you said, it seems, at least as far as the public, as far as we're aware, the U.S. is kind of not really acknowledging BRICS as any sort of serious threat. And now maybe behind the scenes they're doing stuff that we're not aware of. Hopefully. Um, Although I'm not sure that I can give our government the benefit of the doubt there. But you don't have these nations getting together, right? I mean, there's a lot of countries, a lot more countries attended than what they announced that they were, bringing on as these partner nations. I forget the exact count, but I want to say it was like 150 nations or something like that.
I think
And
160. I think it was
was
over
okay,
160 originally.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's a big number, right? So you have all these countries getting together at this summit. You have them showing a mock-up of a new currency that they've been talking about. They've talked about BRICS Pay, their electronic currency. Whether or not it's going to be a crypto, but it's going to be some sort of electronic exchange to be able to trade in their own currencies. You don't have all of this going on just as sort of oh, maybe, hey, let's think about this. Maybe we want to do something here. No, I mean, they're putting a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of people are involved. So I think it needs to be taken very seriously, and hopefully our government is taking it more seriously behind the scenes. But again, we've got so many challenges. I think even just here at home, and of course, going into the election now. Things aren't slowing down there, but the U.S. really needs to step up and fight this battle, and not just for the U.S. dollar, but really for all the citizens in our country. We're seeing inflation go through the roof. Our expenses are so high. It's hard for families to be able to keep up. So we really need to fight and strengthen the dollar for ourselves, and in turn, that will strengthen us and our influence, across the world, and certainly give BRICS more of a battle. But yeah, at this point, it seems like we've sort of just laid down and are letting them do whatever they want to do on their end, and we're not really putting up a fight.
Right. Well, and to be clear, I mean, to understand, we don't need to see it's not as though it has to be an all or nothing type situation. And what I mean by that is that it doesn't have to be the rest of the world, or this BRICS alliance abandons the US dollar, and thus the US dollar collapses, if you will.
Hmm.
The when the as the US dollar with these nations is being replaced with this new BRICS currency, it's just a weakening of our currency alone. that could be enough to really create some havoc in our
Hmm.
financial system, our economy, our markets, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so my point being is it's not as though this is a, you know, the US dollar is either going to win or the BRICS currency is going to win type of deal. As the
Right.
BRICS currency exists and it's utilized in the way that they're discussing it or talking about it being utilized, that alone is enough to create some serious issues in our financial system, in our economy. And
Yeah.
that's the problem. So, I don't know, and like you said, we don't know what our government is doing or not doing, I guess, to be fair. I mean, at best, maybe we could say they're working on CBDCs, and that's, digital currencies that the banking
Hmm.
system can use, and we're going to integrate that, and that's going to be their answer to it. But again, it doesn't change the fact that what these nations who are participating in BRICS are doing is just kind of chipping away at what our financial support has been in terms of the global marketplace. So
Yeah.
I, it's happening. It's happening
Yeah.
quickly.
Well, and even if it's not a complete loss, you make a great point. Um, any ground that the U.S. dollar loses is a loss for us,
Right.
and any gain that BRICS has is a win for them. So it may not completely erode the dollar. It may not completely collapse the system, but any strength that we lose is bad for us. And they're the underdogs here, and any growth that they have is a net gain for them. And of course, it could turn into a major catastrophe and cause problems here at home and in our banking system and whatnot as well. So it's really it's a tough thing. It's really we're having to fight just to keep the ground that we already have. We're not
Right.
necessarily trying to gain. We're just trying to survive here. And from the looks of things, we're not even really doing a great job at that.
100%. Well, and I would have to believe, Chris, and I don't, maybe you would agree, in this try before you buy type scenario that BRICS has afforded these nations to use.
Hmm.
I would take, for instance, European nations. I would think they're kind of watching this as well, trying
Hmm.
to see, okay, well, how is this going to work, or is this thing going to work? And if in this try before you buy thing, they start to see these other countries and their economies start to flourish and not be so dollar dependent, et cetera, that in and of itself could be, we talked about this in an
Yeah.
earlier podcast, that you let some of these European nations, get on board with this program,
Hmm.
that could create a whole lot of hurt in a very short period of time for the United States.
Yeah, and proximity wise, they're closer. They're closer to most of those BRICS nations. So,
Right.
I mean, it makes sense for them to have an alternative, currency for trade.
Right. That's right. Well, thus the secret war on our cash, the US dollar. I don't even have to hesitate, or I won't hesitate in saying this. I mean, it is under attack. How severe that
Yeah.
is and how it ultimately ends up, that remains to be seen. But it is a secret war on our cash. And to learn more about that, ladies and gentlemen, you can contact our office and get our free report, The Secret War. You can do that at 1-800-289-2646, or visit us online at www.swissamerica, all one word.com. If you're not subscribed to this podcast, please do so, as we will be talking about BRICS, inflation, wages, salaries, markets, all the good stuff in the coming weeks, as we kind of getting near wrapping up our 2024 year here. So thanks for tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.